Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, and your host, John Arhitis. Today, I'm joined with Jersey City Board of Education trustee Amy DeGise, who is also a candidate to be the chair of the Hudson County Democratic Organization. Amy, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, Amy, obviously, this wasn't something that you were anticipating, at least correct me if I'm wrong, but as recently as probably 2 weeks ago, this probably wasn't something that was on your itinerary, but this came about last minute, at least the way it was framed to me. So just tell me how this all came about from your perspective.
Well, I wanted it for a while, and I kept trying to throw my name in there. My father kept telling me, think about it, think about what you're getting yourself into, think of every possible scenario, think of what's on your plate. I wanted it, and finally a few days ago, I got
it. That's an easy way to look at it.
Yeah.
So obviously you saw in the light of the announcement, State Senator Union City Mayor Brian Stack, I'm going to say, was a little aggravated by your candidacy.
Anyone would be.
And, he had some not so nice things to say, and you obviously read it, so I won't rehash it too much, but I mean, what was your reaction to that?
I thought it was really hypocritical, because in one sense, he's calling for young progressive leadership, and all of a sudden you have one, and that's not what you want. You call him inexperienced, and what a better way to get experience than to just immerse yourself and throw yourself into this process.
Now, obviously the full-up stack contingency, again, not particularly thrilled with this announcement. They're saying more of the same from the county, the patronage stuff, and, you've heard it all already, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, again, just your reaction to those kind of thoughts.
I think if more people knew me, they would know that I spent the first 20 years doing the exact opposite of what my father had asked, so I'm not going to be a carbon copy of what he wants, and that I actually am really compelled to do this because I want to be a peacemaker. I want to resolve what is going on in Hudson County right now for the Democratic Party. And that's the purpose of the chair, to keep the Democratic Party united and strong. Because on a state level, how are people going to look at us if our own home is broken? We have huge candidates on the ballot like Senator Bob Menendez and Congressman Albio Sierras. We're supposed to be using our time, money, and energy here in Hudson County, rallying up all of our Democrats and all of our supporters to go out for them, to pull in big numbers, to bring out literature, to have volunteers. We can't have any home problems right now. Now is not the time for that.
All right, so last week, I guess it was a little over a week now, when your dad, DeGise, had that event with Senator Menendez. Obviously, they talked about progressive values, keeping Hudson County moving in the right direction, et cetera, et cetera. And you spoke a little bit about that as well. So when we talk about progressive values, obviously, under the Trump administration, that's something we hear a lot. But to you, what exactly does that phrase mean?
Progressive is working directly with the people, working with initiatives that community groups, community outreach have put together. You have to have a certain set of rules for the government to abide by, which I think is called for in this area as well. And being a progressive is being able to, bring some more social reform, not just, a liberal mentality and a democratic mentality, but worrying about the people that are in your community. And we have such a diverse community here. Are they being represented in each municipality, on the county level, and within the HCDO?
Yes, okay. Now, so there's been some talk about what happens next. So if you do get elected, what do you foresee happening in the next few months, through the end of 2018? What would you like to do with this organization? I mean, I reported last week, as you may be aware, that, this is an organization that's historically not been great at fundraising, has not really gotten involved in races outside of Hudson County. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? What are your views on what the HCDO could be doing better?
A lot better. And I've studied the bylaws of our Hudson County Democratic Organization. I've looked at other counties, and there's a lot that we're missing out on. Number one is bringing in community outreach and advocate programs. We can establish more committees that have fewer elected officials and more unelected advocates that will speak for their community with the elected officials, and make it more of a joint effort where legislation will go, where they see the Democratic Party going. We need to be rejuvenating our youth. Historically, youth voters are the least likely to come out on the local level. They're energized right now, and I teach high school, so I know, what the topical issues are for them. They want to vote. They want to get involved. They don't know how. Right now, there's not even a website for the HCDO. The Facebook and Twitter pages are not always updated, and that's of no fault of anyone because it is a very, cumbersome position to have.
Sure.
I would like to establish more committees, bring in people from each municipality, establish peace. bring back unity. Everybody's okay. This is all our home. This is all our community that we care so much about. Let's come to the table together, not pull each other apart, and work on bringing in more advocates, bringing in younger people, minorities, people who are freshly new to the community. Are they registered to vote here? Did they change their address? Are they going to be able to go out and vote in November? Do we have voter registration drives? And then obviously the fundraising and rallies too. And I think when you bring the youth in there, you'll see where these fundraisers and rallies can go. Casino in the park is fun and it's nice and you see the same old faces and the same old suits and it's always a good night. I always enjoy it. There's so much more that we could be doing to just energize each other and to make sure that we're staying close to our democratic principles.
So there's life outside of Hudson beyond casino in the park?
There is so much life beyond Hudson.
This is shocking. This is breaking
news.
Okay. Well, with that said, I'll take your word for it.
I'll show you.
Oh, even better. So, all right, on that point, you know, the one reason that the people that are backing Brian Stack for this position, they're saying, you know, his get out the vote totals and, you know, just reinvigorating life into the party is unparalleled. And, you know, certainly even someone like yourself would agree, he's 24/7.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what do you bring to the table that you think Senator Stack would not?
I think my age definitely favors me there and my experience. Not saying that, you know, his age is like working against him, but he's a great mayor for Union City. He's done that for a while. He's a great senator for that area, for Union City more than Jersey City and Weehawken, where he also represents. But he has a lot on his plate right now. And Union City seems to come first, and that's fine because he's the mayor of Union City, and Union City should come first in his eyes. But I feel like I can put Hudson County first, and come as an educator, as a union leader, as a lifelong Jersey City resident, and also as a young elected official myself, surrounded by other young advocates and other young elected officials that want to get more involved, but see the veterans in there as kind of an obstacle almost. They're not really willing to sit down with them and work with them and hear them out. It's kind of, well, just join what I'm doing and then we'll talk about what you want to do, where it should be a little bit more mutual. So, but there's no doubt about it. You know, he's a great vote getter. He's extremely organized. He's a great mayor for Union City. But I think as far as the Democratic Party goes for Hudson County, we need a different type of leadership.
All right, fair enough. Now, obviously, needless to tell you, this is like the latest chapter in a civil war. And it all comes down to June 2019 when your dad will be seeking re-election. So, you know, in the doomsday scenario, from your perspective or your side's perspective, what do you think happens in the event that Brian Stack wins this thing in a blowout? Then what?
You mean in this November? In this June? Sorry, not next June. Mm-hmm. Then he wins, and that means the committee people have spoken. That's what their job is. This is democracy. I don't think anyone is going to be, you know, carrying pitchforks and torches and stuff. I think life will go on. My dad will still be a fighter, and all of his supporters and my supporters will be fighters as well, and we'll continue our fight.
So certainly you don't speak for him, and I would not indicate that you would, but so in the event that does happen, you still don't envision any scenario where he would back out of a re-election bid.
Oh, absolutely not, no. Still, you know, I mean, always hopeful that things may change and peace will come, you know, even without me in a leadership position. That would be a great thing for Hudson County to do, and I think that our leaders should think about their community and their constituents. Have they heard a lot of bad feedback? Have they heard, you know, since their announcement, people cheering and saying, yes, you're doing the right thing? Or have they been hearing like, no, we don't agree with you? They need to take a seat back and listen for a while. Okay.
Now, two of the mailers that went out against Senator Stack thus far have targeted his support of Governor Christie, and, you know, this has become a big talking point.
Absolutely.
To tell you, and, you know, both your family comes from, of course, that sector. And what do you think about, you know, we're talking about Chapter 78 and all this other stuff that happened under the former Republican governor and, you know, the support he had from Senator Stack and other Democrats that, you know, led to some of these things being passed. I mean, just in short, I mean, what do you think that means as far as this vote?
Well, that was another reason that this really riled me up, is that the leader of the Democratic Party was an avid supporter of one of the most destructive Republican governors that we've had. There's nothing wrong with being a Republican. Democrats don't have the monopoly on good ideas and everything like that. But what Governor Chris Christie did to educators and public workers, it's going to take decades to build that back. Chapter 78 as a teacher crippled us. We take home less money now than ever for the past 8 years. It caused a teacher strike in Jersey City when they were trying to renegotiate their contracts and they weren't getting enough back in the healthcare realm. It's also affected retirements. It's affected pensions. We got the park test as teachers. It just seems that Governor Chris Christie just put the hammer down on all of these institutions that we love to have. We all have in our families. An educator, a police officer, a firefighter, they're all in our families, but yet they got extremely hurt under. And now we have Governor Phil Murphy, who's polar opposite, who's this progressive with bright ideas, who's, going to give President Trump such a challenge, and I'm so grateful for that. And how can you say that you supported the polar opposite in Christie? I don't think that you could support both men.
So you can't have it both ways, you would say? No,
not at all. And supporting Governor Chris Christie was a huge breaking point for me.
Okay. And, Senator Stack, his retort to that was, well, back in, I think it was before you and I were born, but he said that your father supported Brett Schindler, who was also a Republican for governor. So, what do you see the parallels, if there are any, in that situation?
I love that you think I'm that young, but I was born, and I was in City Hall, actually, when my dad was the council president under Brett Schindler, who was a Republican. Like I said, Democrats don't have the monopoly on good ideas, and if you were born and raised in Jersey City and you remember Brett Schindler, he was a great man and a great mayor. He worked directly with his community on social issues. He was very liberal, and even, on some issues, he was quite moderate for a Republican. He was never far right, like some things that we see today, we're just so polarized. But Brett Schindler worked with his community very well. He had a great council. I remember him dearly, and that's why when he ran for governor, I think I was in high school, my father was a supporter of him because he was so good to Jersey City.
Okay. And again, I'll just reiterate, I know you can't speak for your dad, but a lot of people, since the announcement, have been questioning, well, why did Tom DeGise just run? Wouldn't that have made more sense, a head-to-head matchup? Tom DeGise versus Brian Stack, a headlining main event type of thing. Some people feel like it was a cop-out, and Brian has said as much.
Well, Amy DeGise wanted to run, and that's the truth of it. My dad doesn't need this on his plate. I don't know if that was on his radar, if he was thinking about it and talking about it, because I wouldn't have that discussion with him. His job is to be the county executive, and his job is to be the candidate for county executive next year as well. This isn't something that he needs right now. And again, some of our leaders have multiple roles in government. I'm not calling that double dipping, there's nothing wrong with that. They've been elected to do that. But how much is too much? Let's spread it out. Spread out, especially get younger, newer, fresher blood in there, and obviously a woman too. I think that they need some female leadership. We're actually very underrepresented in Hudson County. We have so many females leading advocacy groups and community outreach groups for an array of causes. So I'd really like to see them be brought up to play.
And how do you see that happening?
Well, again, I believe as chair, I can set up a lot of different committees for a lot of different initiatives, political education, legislative actions, voter registration, bringing in those, like I keep saying, the advocacy groups. And again, a lot of women are working with them. And some of these women, and men too, they don't want to be an elected official, but they want to invest in their community in a more meaningful way. And I believe I could do that for them.
Okay. To again play devil's advocate, HCDO chair, of course, is unpaid. So in one hand, you could have a mayor, a state senator, and then the HCDO chair. And on the other hand, you could have a teacher, union rep, HCDO chair. Look, there's no comparing, a teacher versus a mayor, senator, whatever. But either way, whoever gets it is going to have a lot of responsibilities. That's fair to say, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I have the energy to do it, and I have the ideas to bring in more people with a lot of energy with me, that we're going to be able to run this like a well-oiled machine. Right now, it's financially drained, a little physically drained. I think that the veterans can take a rest, be the elected officials, do their jobs at 100%, and let some of the advocates of their community run the show a little bit and offer them direction and offer them help and kind of work in a joint way.
Okay, interesting theory.
Right? I think it could work. And that's actually, as I've been looking at other Democratic organizations, that's how it's been. that they always have elected officials there and leading. However, more of the community is involved. And that's when you get to those, specific causes that people are talking about that the whole entire county can get on. Affordable housing, the opiate crisis, public education, and you get to talk with people and elected officials, and then you get to go to the state and talk about it, and that's when initiatives are accomplished.
All right. So over the weekend, have you had a chance to meet with some of the committee members throughout the county that perhaps you weren't so familiar with before?
Well, there's about 900 of them. I think I got about 700 down. I'm just kidding. No, I did a lot of groundwork this weekend, and I met a lot of them. I know a lot of them, which is very, very nice, and I know a lot of them that have been there for a while that they're almost a leader of the committee people. Mm-hmm. So they're able to, bring me around to others in small group settings and stuff like that. But yeah, I did lay a lot of groundwork.
And how was the feedback, the reception you were getting?
The reception was really positive, I have to say. A lot of people were very happy that, I was kind of doing this. It took a lot of courage. I thought it was very bold, and they respected that. And they also agreed that there is a need for young progressive leadership, and those are taking the words out of Senator Stack's mouth, that we do need young blood in there. And I couldn't agree with him more. I think if he was a committee person, he should be voting for me.
Interesting. I don't know if you would agree with that, but interesting for sure.
Well, because I don't want to work against him. I want to work with him, and I want all of us to work together.
Well, on that point, regardless who wins, don't you think the party is going to remain fractured for X amount of time? I mean, as long as a year until this primary is over with?
I believe if I'm successful, that won't be the case. I believe people work very well with me. It would be very hard for you, and this isn't a challenge, it'd be very hard for you to find someone to say something bad about me, or their experience working with me, I should say, and that's not a challenge, don't go out. I feel like I bring to the table someone who's fair and open-minded. I'm passive, I'm not driven by an ego, or fame, fortune, or anything like that. And I think that that's really helped me, whether that be in my school career, as a union leader, and even on the Board of Education, it's helped. And I feel like establishing that and bringing everyone back to the table instead of saying, hey, one side is going to get pulled forward, the other side is going to have to stand behind the door and wait, that's not accomplishing anything. My goal here is to unite the party. All right, we need to be a strong Democratic Party. We saw in the presidential election, the Democrats get split. What happens? We elect someone who probably should not be in that position, is probably not doing the best job for us. What's going to happen here if it splits and you divide people up, you divide your constituency up, your communities up? You may get a leader in there that's neither one of these guys that nobody's going to work well with.
Okay, well, the historical stats back up your theory there, at least the recent historical stats.
At least recent historical stats.
Yeah, so, and then just real quick, let's talk about the Jersey City Board of Education. Obviously, it's been a busy 6-7 months or so there.
It has.
And, we have the contract and, the healthcare stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to ask you, what are some things that you would hang your hat on the Board of Ed that you helped initiate and resolve that you thought, you were really proud of and happy about?
Absolutely. Well, with negotiations, I actually could not be involved, not only being a union leader, but a teacher. So I cannot take any credit for that, but I know they worked extremely hard getting that contract settled.
Sure.
With the budget, that was a lot of manpower and a lot of hours trying to maneuver where we can cut our costs without laying off anyone. And we were very successful doing that despite a $70 million shortfall. Another thing that we've been working on is the educational technology that the city is using and better ways to spend its money on the technological devices that they're using, not only in the classroom, but in their central office. And now, Trustee Marilyn Roman and I don't know if you know Marilyn, I love her.
Of course.
We're working on a newer professional development model where the city will not, the district will not bring in consultants for the day, but actually let the teachers lead the professional development and possibly even make a stipend or an extra free period to do that. And I think teachers are more invested when they're able to lead their own professional development. They know their school, they know their community. You can't have one blanket professional development for an entire district. So I'm really looking forward to that, as that should take off in September. We're talking about it right now, actually.
And that's a cost-saving initiative?
Absolutely, it's a cost-saving initiative. So a lot of the professional development through the district goes through Title I money, which is grant money and things. If you don't use it, you lose it. So it doesn't technically take away from our huge operating budget, which is nice. So you have a lot of money to play around with that's not from taxpayer dollars. But this money has historically been given out to different groups that will bring people in and tell teachers how to teach, or tell teachers how to use Google Suite. Teachers already know how to do those things, but some teachers have better initiatives than others, and they want to bring that to the table. Like, hey, this really worked in my classroom. I'd really like to have a whole period to talk to my other teachers on what I'm doing in here and why I'm so successful, and I'd like the opportunity to do so. So we believe instead of compensating a consultant firm that can't really decipher our district versus Newark versus Elizabeth, talk about our specific population.
All right, yeah, sounds like something to watch out for.
Absolutely.
So going back to the politics, and I think we'll end on this note. So if you look at the people that have run the HCDO, the past chairman, you have Jeremiah Healy, you have Mark Smith, Vincent Prado, who's the outgoing chair. These are all people, obviously, needless to tell you, that are deeply entrenched in Hudson County politics. So in the event you are successful next month, I mean, do you look this as a jumping off point for council or assembly or anything like that?
I look at it as the baton will continue to be passed. I don't know if you saw my Aunt Lois, which was recently acknowledged in the Jersey Journal for feminizing the bars. It was illegal for a woman to bartend or go to a bar in Jersey City up until 1974. She was one of the first female councilwomen in Jersey City. Now, we've had many more, thankfully. Then my father got active, grassroots kind of guy. He was a school teacher, started the Block Association in the Heights, and, worked his way from activist to legislator to now executive. And I feel that same kind of call to service. I don't know where that's going to lead me, or if it'll always be an elected position, but I'm born and raised Jersey City. My kids are gonna be born and raised Jersey City. Their kids are gonna be born and raised Jersey City. So I'll always be involved in something here to better my community, whether it's elected or unelected.
All right, well said. Amy, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we'll be back with you on Friday. We'll certainly see you in the next week. Enjoy the rest of the work week.